And here we are again, friends. It's Tuesday, and as you all know by now, Tuesday is ThoughtVolution Day. I'm your host, Stefan Dubier, and you are listening to the podcast where the thoughts of others meet evolving minds. Friends, who is your confidant? Who do you go to when you need advice, a hug, or a long night of just talking and listening with a glass of wine, a pint of ice cream, or just a box of Kleenex? Perhaps you are fortunate to have more than one person like that, or you do not really have a confidant or best friend at all, and turn to the internet to find like-minded people to talk to. In any case, we all have moments when we seek humanity, the comfort of a trustworthy listener, a word of encouragement to carry us through another day or another night. My guest Emily is 31 years old and lives in the peachiest state of them all, in Georgia. She's happily engaged to be married, a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and perhaps the only person on this planet to despise regular mac and cheese while at the same time loving mac and cheese with tuna fish. Her friends, most of whom are nerdy scientists, describe Emily as earnest, hardworking, and intelligent. One of her biggest accomplishments to date is getting her master's degree after a long and discouraging struggle with self-doubt. Emily is very much trying to take ownership of her life, and things couldn't be sweeter if it wasn't for a devastating blow she received one day. A blow that hits approximately 57 women every single day. Emily was diagnosed with breast cancer. Breast cancer is the most common cancer in women in the United States, and although deaths have declined thanks to better treatment options, breast cancer remains the second leading cause of cancer deaths among women overall. We all know that statistics are just that, numbers that are never able to fully capture an individual's journey. Every cancer story is unique, and so is the inspiration and encouragement it can be for other cancer patients, their families, and friends. Emily's story is one about community. Instead of hiding and suffering in silence through the diagnosis and the brutal treatments, she turned to social media, especially TikTok, to share her story, to find comfort and even friendships. Emily wants to tell us about God's hand in her cancer journey and about the warmth that is the cancer community. No burden is ever too heavy for us to carry, as long as there are enough people willing to take a few ounces of our shoulders. In some cases, those of you willing to lend an ear, to show up and be there for a fellow human being, truly are lifesavers. Especially to somebody dealing with the trauma that comes along with a life-shattering diagnosis. Friends, grab a cup of tea. That is what Emily and I will do as we share her story with you. And let's see what this Georgia peach is really all about. I am so proud to welcome her to our little community of ThoughtVolutionists. Please give a warm welcome to Emily. Trigger warning. This episode contains conversations about cancer and cancer treatment. If any of these subjects are a trigger to you, please prioritize your mental health and skip this episode. Emily, thank you so much for being here. It's a gorgeous day here in South Carolina, at least. So what are your plans for the weekend over in Georgia?
Well, it's actually kind of nice here too. Might have some storms later, which would be kind of hope they hold out until tomorrow, because tonight is the Relay for Life for Gwinnett County. And COVID kind of hit it hard, so it's no longer as big as it once was. So now it's over in Swanee Town Center. So I'm going to try and see if I can go to that. That's pretty much all the plans I have. And then church tomorrow and D&D tomorrow night. That's about it.
So for me and all of our listeners out there who may not be as familiar with D&D or Dungeons and Dragons, I know that much. And I know there's a movie out that I have not seen yet. I think my son wants to see it, so we might have to bite the bullet there. But can you tell us a little bit more about Dungeons and Dragons, what it means to you, and what exactly it is?
Sure. It is a tabletop role play game, but it can be played digitally. my group, we were scattered all across Georgia, and then one of them is in Texas, and the other one is sometimes in Thailand. So we will talk to each other through Discord chat and then play the game on a website like Roll20. But basically, what you do is you have a character that you have created that has stats, just like any character in any video game. And the dungeon master or game master, they're interchangeable, is the person telling the story. They set up the world. They say, okay, here's the scenario. What do you do? And then you and your friends from the party follow this story. And you can choose freely what to do, what you want to do, how you want to say it. But say you're trying to sneak into a party and everybody's dancing, there's music, and you want to sneak in, but you're not invited. But there's a guard there. And if you get past the guard, you can get in there and dance, right? Well, you dress up real nice. You go, oh, I was invited. I lost my invitation. Well, you have to convince the guard. But it's not you, it's your character who has to convince the guard. So you have to roll a die. And so when you roll the dice, whatever number that lands on is how good or how bad you did. In this case, it would be deception. And say you rolled a nat 20, which is where the die lands on 20. It's a D20 dice. And it lands on a 20. Congratulations, you did the best that you could do. And then the dice like, okay, all right, fine, I believe you. You can go on in. Or let's say you rolled a nat 1, which is where that dice lands on a 1. You failed. You did really bad. You probably, you maybe got stage fright, or you hiccuped, or you said the wrong thing. And the person looked, yeah, I don't believe you for a second. Turn around and go away, or I'll arrest you. That's how the game goes. So you never really know what's going to happen. And since it's you and your friends, hijinks all the time.
That is very interesting and a good segue into my next question, because you also mentioned earlier that books are something that means a great deal to you. I assume that many books were read by you in waiting rooms and doctors' offices undergoing treatment. Which book would you say will remain forever with you, and which one helped you get through a lot of the darker spots in your life?
I read quite a few, and I still am. A lot of them, it could, especially if I'm nervous, I can easily get distracted and bounce from book to book to book. Like if this part starts getting kind of slow, then I'll jump to another one. So I'll be reading like 10 books at any given point. But one of the books that helped me get through a lot of the darkness it's a book called To Suffer the Crown by Josephine Godbey. Actually, a friend of mine, I think it was my friend of mine's, I think it was her grandmother who wrote that book. It means a lot to me because I've had it for a long time. But also, it's one of those, the main character goes through so much crap, and still remains a good person. They have their flaws, yes, but they never give up that hope, which is something that, especially right now, and early on in the diagnosis, that I really, really needed. And then the other books would probably be the Valdemar series by Mercedes Lackey. There are so many in that series, and she doesn't write chronologically. She'll be writing in the way distant past and then jump back to the present. And you don't have to read them in order. And she'll have individual trilogies that are self-contained, or maybe an individual book that's self-contained. And they all kind of build on each other, but you don't have to read all of them to figure out what's going on, because it doesn't treat you like you're stupid, but it says, hey, this is the basic outline every time that you pick up the different book. And I like that because I love that world, but I haven't read all of them. And it's hard to find them all from the library at any given point because there's just so many that I can immerse myself into the world and really get lost in it. And it's a lot easier to do that when, you're getting pricked by numerous, IVs, or going into an MRI machine, which I'm not going to lie, I'm not claustrophobic, but it's very, very loud and very close. And so it's one of those calming mechanisms before I get in there. So yeah, those are the big ones: the Valdemar series and To Suffer the Crown.
You are not only an avid reader, you also carry a lot of love for music in you. and you even competed in Federation for Piano for 12 or 13 years. What does music mean to you?
I played piano since I was in elementary school. I was really, really little. And I used to compete with Federation for 12 to 13 years. And it didn't feel like a competition. Like I would still get the jitters, but it was kind of more once you start playing, you get lost in it because it becomes less of, oh gosh, there's someone judging me to, all right, this is music. This is something I'm good at. All right, no, I need to make it move like that. I need to make it sound like that. And especially with piano, a lot of the piano music will tell you, play this part loud, play this part quiet. And I've also heard recordings of the person who wrote that song playing it themselves. Like one of my favorite pianists is David Lons. I love his music. And when he writes his music, those loud and soft are instructions are fewer and far between because it's much more of an interpretive type music. And when I play it the way I feel like it should sound, less so the way it has been written, because it feels like you get moved with the music. And that's I love that type of music. So things like, have you ever heard of Secret Garden? I think they were from Eurovision at one point. Then Ivan Torrent, Thomas Burgesson, Two Steps from Hell. They do a lot of audio machine. It's a lot of symphonic soundscapes. If you've seen a commercial for a movie or a video game, I guarantee you've heard that music because they use their music all the time for those commercials. But they don't have anything attached to them. It's just the sound, and it can move you to tears just because it is. You can hear a story in the song without there being any background attached to it. And some of them are puns. Like one of them, it sounds like pirate ship at sea. And the name of the song is High Seas, not SEA, but capital C apostrophe S. I love those music type. I love that music because I don't have to sit there and focus on lyrics. I love songs with lyrics, don't get me wrong. Within Temptation was one of my favorites for ages. And yes, I am a Backstreet Boys and NSYNC girl. I shamelessly admit that. But sometimes you just need music to calm down, music to get yourself excited, or music to just breathe. And like when I'm stressed or worried, especially for going into treatment, I'll listen to like Forbidden Love by Ivan Torrent. And it's calming. It helps you relax a little bit. And it makes you feel less like you're stressed.
Your dream job would be either being a geoscientist or an airline pilot. Why did you not end up working in that field? And what is it that you do now?
I had always wanted to be a meteorologist. Like that's all I ever wanted to be. But me and Calculus 2 decided that we hated each other. I tried very many times. And I ended up having a hardship withdrawal from that semester due to outside circumstances. And then I tried it again, and I still failed it. Letters and numbers do not belong together. It does not make sense. But I still loved weather, and I wasn't going to give that up. It's like, okay, well, if I can't become a meteorologist, then I'll find a backdoor. And I discovered GIS, Geographic Information Systems, or science. The S's can be both. And I ended up with a professor who was incredibly supportive and helped me figure out how to get the bachelor's of geography, bachelor's in GIS, while getting all the experience in meteorology up to the classes I would need to take after I took Calculus 2, which I could not pass. I still can't. And when I grew up with my dad being a pilot and then his dad being a pilot, and my sister loves aviation as well. It was one of those, it was just kind of everywhere all at once. And I thought, okay, you know, it'd be really cool is if I could combine my love of weather and geography with aviation. And I was like, you know, I could become a pilot, but flight school is ridiculously expensive. It costs about as much as tuition. And there would still be no guarantee. Like I could only get a job as a pilot if I passed it. And if no one's hiring, oh well. But if I have a degree in a field, then I can work in that field while going to flight school if I could eventually have enough money to do that. So I kept going toward it and trying to work toward that goal. And then when I went for my master's, I was like, you know what? There are so many incidents like in aviation, such as British Airways Flight 9 that flew through a volcanic ash cloud at night and didn't know it, that have almost harmed people and or have, but they involve meteorology and geography. And I love those. What if I could find a way to combine all of them? And that ended up being my master's. So now I have like a bigger idea of what I can do. And so I started working with several utilities over the course of, I think it's been like 10 years now. And now I finally had the chance to go to flight school and I had paid and everything. And then this happened. So I was like, okay, well, next year it's going to happen. It's not going to come leave me. I'm not going to let it go away.
Love for the sky, for being up in the air, floating, feeling free, is something so telling, something you care deeply about. How do you connect with the vastness of the sky in your everyday life?
I think I would die if I never saw the sky again. I have trouble being in buildings without a window. If there's no window, I get twitchy. So even if I can't see out, just seeing the natural light is calming. A lot of times I'll be in my room and my mom will come and it's like, it's so dark. No, it's not. It's perfectly bright. My shutters open, the sunlight's coming in. She goes, it's so dark. No, it's not. And even my favorite days, believe it or not, are days when it's bright and sunny in the morning and then just thunderstorms in the afternoon. Those good old southern afternoon storms. And it's the sheer power. And yeah, there's a little bit of fear involved because yeah, lightning can kill you. That's true. There's a whole bunch of other things that can kill you too. But it's a really weird, awe-inspiring beauty. And the fact that it can never be controlled. It can never be mastered. It will always be something that you will never fully understand. And that's what intrigues me. That there's always going to be something else to learn. And even if you decide, I'm not gonna inspect it. I just want to appreciate it. You can. You could step back and just go, wow, that's such a pretty thunderstorm. So, oh yeah, that's a strong updraft, and up this, and then that's the wall cloud. You don't have to always do that. Sometimes you just sit back and go, wow, that's a beautiful sunset. And then just be at peace and like have no thoughts in your head while you just sit there and just look at it. And it will never get old because it'll never be the same every single day. It'll always be different. And that's what I love about it.
Emily, close your eyes for a moment and take us back to your childhood. What was your life like growing up, and how would you describe your family to somebody who has never met them?
My mom and dad were amazing. My dad was an airline pilot, so he would be gone for 4, 5 days in a row, and then be back for 3, 4 days, and then fly again. And mom worked for I really don't remember what type of company it was, somewhere in downtown Atlanta. And my sister and I went to private school. And then we started being homeschooled. Well, for me, it was middle of fifth grade. For her, it was third grade. And dad was, he would tell all of these stories about, when he was flying in the Navy, and then when he was flying as in commercial. And then mom would come home and tell us stories about funny things that happened. Like she sold a couch to a Backstreet Boy. I was like, you did what? He goes, yeah. Well, can you show me that picture of these? Yeah, I sold it to him. I was like, mom, oh my gosh, And she didn't know. She was like, hey, he looks kind of familiar. I was like, you sold the couch to the Backstreet Boy? And I would learn it would just do a whole bunch of crazy things. Like I climbed trees when I probably shouldn't have. I fell out of a tree and lost my first tooth because I landed mouth first on a stump. But I got a Sacagawea gold dollar from my trouble, and dad will never let me live that down. And I remember one day when, by this point, I was daddy's girl, my sister was a mama girl. And whenever we would have a thunderstorm, we had a big front porch. Dad and I would sit on the swing on the front porch and watch the storm while Amy and mom were inside like sane people. And I remember at one point there was a storm coming, but it was still far enough away that, there wasn't any thunder, but you could see the cloud. And I was biking in the driveway in the cul-de-sac. And I remember looking up, and do you remember the movie production companies, Columbia, TriStar, it's that big rolling cloud behind the lady with the torch or the Pegasi. That's what that cloud looked like. It was unreal. I've never seen anything like that before. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to see that from the sky. And Dad's like, oh yeah, I bet that'd be really cool from an airplane. And I was like, you know what? I want to do that. And then 9/11 happened. So the airplane, a lot of the airlines struggled after that. We were doing some construction on the house that we had just moved into, and because of the financial struggles with that all the major airlines went through, we ended up having a door to a 13-foot drop for about 2 years. So we just had to lock that door and tape it shut so no one accidentally opened it. And it was kind of rough for a few years because of that, but it was also nice in the sense that we all kind of worked together to figure out what we could do, where we could go, and supporting one another, especially since my sister is very artistic and I'm very much scientific. So I don't know how Mom tolerated our nonsense at the time, but yeah, that's how we grew up.
You put in your intake form that one of your biggest regrets was not realizing that your ex-fiance was a jerk earlier than you did. What happened in that relationship? And if you could give that ex-fiance some advice for the future, what would it be?
I saw a lot of red flags, but I don't, people who have been in relationships with someone that you really care about, you're looking through the world through rose colored lenses. So all red flags just look like flags until one thing happens that knocks the glasses off and suddenly all the red flags kind of stand up. And you're just like, oh, oh. And you realize you overlooked them, not because you didn't see them, but because you care about this person, you love this person, you want to believe that no one's perfect, everyone's going to have their flaws type thing. But then the one happens that knocks the glasses off and you realize, maybe I should reevaluate. I am not a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to diagnose anything, but it came across as a narcissist, and it took me forever to actually notice that. At one point, there was nothing wrong with the relationship at the time, but it was one of the ones that rang the bells that started knocking the glasses off. Somehow he got into his head that I was going to break up with him. Not sure where that came from, but he said, if you break up with me, you can never go back to this cafe, which happened to be my favorite cafe, because I don't want to see you again. I was like, what? You don't own it. You don't work there. You literally only go there if I'm there. What makes you think you have the power to tell me where I can and cannot go just because you don't want to see me? If this happened, if we ended up breaking up, the kicker was when we went to, I know how to rollerblade, but I can't roller skate to save my life. I don't know why the brakes in the front of the skate. Nope. I face plant every time I try. But one girl fell and broke her leg. And it wasn't, one of those dramatic breaks. It's just one of those things where you look at it and you just go, that's broken. But you're not going to say it because the girl is right there and she's in shock, but she's handling it okay. And no one was going to call 911 because ambulances cost money, but no one was going to take her to the hospital because no one had an SUV except moi. I had an SUV and I was familiar with both hospitals because my dad had been in one. I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, I can take it. He yelled at me for about 5 minutes in the parking lot because how dare I take someone I don't know to the hospital because she could hurt me because she's someone who I don't know. She's a stranger. And I was like, she can't move without screaming. What is the problem? Why do you want me to not do this? He wanted me to stay and skate with him. And I was like, wow, okay. But I really loved this person. And I did not want to, I wanted to be sure that the choice that I made was right. So I prayed to say, God, I'm the kind of person who questions everything that I see. When we go to couples counseling, if he leaves, I'll know you want this to end. And he did. The only reason why he didn't walk out of the room is because the counselor stopped him. But I knew that was my answer. I was like, all right, I understand. I heard that loud and clear. It's been almost 9 years since. And I wish nothing but good things for him because I know he's had a rough life. And I know that he tries very hard to do what he wants, to get what he wants, to do what he wants to do. And I truly want him to find someone who will be the perfect match for him. But I also think he needs to take a look into a mirror and realize that he is not in the center of the world. And sometimes everybody can make mistakes, including you. That does not make you messed up. It just means you've got to work on yourself a little bit more. And I truly hope he finds someone who will balance him out and they have a great relationship. That's truly what I want for him.
Clearly, you are now happily engaged and to be married. Tell us about the love of your life, the wedding plans, of course, and how this relationship differs from the broken one behind you that you just described.
This guy we met in church. I think it was about the same. I think it was, about 2013, give or take. It's been ages. And we went to the same church. We both, I kind of noticed him, but it was kind of more of a, oh, you're one of the few people my age here. But that was kind of it. It was very, however, we were in the same age group. We never really actually had the time to sit down and talk much. And then we both went our separate ways. He went to school and got a job, and I went to school and got a job. And then we ended up coming back because COVID, and we started hanging out. And we didn't even consider it dating so much as just we would get lunch after church and then just hang out, talk. And then we went to a Barnes and Noble. We hung out there for 6 hours, and we did not realize it had been 6 hours. All we knew was that we had gotten there like, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And he got coffee, I got tea, and we just sat there and started talking. And we both like, I'm kind of hungry. It's probably like 1 o'clock. No, it was 4 or 5, which was, we were kind of both looking at each other like, oh, maybe we should look into getting dinner instead of lunch. But he's taller than I am. He's a skinny little stick, but he's all muscle, and he tans, which is not fair because I burn like a lobster. There's nothing I can do. We started once we realized we were actually dating, which we had to be told that, by the way, which was pretty freaking funny. And I'll never let myself live that down because that was funny. We went to the EAA's Air Venture last year up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And I put on sunscreen 3 times the whole day. One day, 3 times. And I still burned. And him over here just turning nice tan. I was like, that's not fair. But he's nice, he's sweet, he loves God, he's always ready to help. And if he has an opinion about something and it matters to him, he will tell you. He will make it clear. But otherwise, he's like, oh yeah, whatever you want. Sure, we can. I don't care. Let's like, do you want to do this? Sure, cool. We went to a Rising Fawn, which is I hesitate to say suburb because it's tiny, over near Trenton, which is just southwest of Chattanooga in northwest Georgia. And it's right on one of the ridge lines of Lookout Mountain. We went hang gliding up there, and then Cloudland Valley. And I remember we were going to go on one of the trails to look at the waterfalls. And it's a short trail, but as we walked up, the sign said, "This is a strenuous trail." I was like, well, what do you mean strenuous? That's a short trail. Is it like steep or something? No, bruh. It was steps. It was just stairways the whole way up and down. And I looked at him, and I looked at the stairs, and I looked at him and go, so I can make it down. But coming up, we're going to have to stop quite a bit because I will struggle. He laughed. He was like, okay, cool. That's fine. We made it down. We went to all the waterfalls, and coming back up, I was dying. My legs are turning into jelly, and I had to stop so frequently. And he would just stand there next to me like, oh, this is fine. And he would never complained once. In fact, one time I walked right past the benches because I thought there was another stop because it went up to a different platform. And I was like, oh, I'm going to sit on that platform because there's a better view. There's no bench up there. And I was like, there's no bench. He goes, yeah, I was wondering why you walked past. And I'm like, but this one's higher. It has a better view. And he just laughed at me. And I like that he tolerates my nonsense. And he just kind of looks at me like, wow, you're weird. I love you. And I like that. He doesn't, things that normally would make me self-conscious, he gives me this look like that was the most cute thing that he'd ever seen me do. And is he perfect? No, but I don't think I would ever want a perfect person. Like, gosh, that would make me really feel uncomfortable if I was dating a perfect person. But since we both go to the same church, we know a lot of the same people. And apparently, everyone in the whole church had been, said, to use the word, they've been shipping us together for ages. Because they're like, so when are they actually gonna admit that they're dating? When are they gonna admit it? So when we finally admit it, just like, oh gosh, finally. And then come Christmas last year, I proposed to him on Christmas Day because he hadn't done it yet, and I was frustrated because I had already knew that he wanted to marry me. And then I asked his parents because his dad was like, "Oh yeah, I asked him." He said, "Yeah, he definitely wants to marry you." When I asked him why he hadn't asked you, he said he didn't know. It's like, well, could I ask him? He goes, "Sure." So I did, and he said yes. And he looked, his face just like bright, his eyes got wide, and his smile just got huge, and he just looked glowing. He was like, "Yes!" I was like, "Yay! I got him now." And then when we announced it to church, everyone was so happy. It was like one of the, I think, I don't remember who it was, but someone said, finally. It was so funny.
You are speaking to me today as somebody who managed to live through probably the most feared diagnosis a woman can face today. How did you find out that you had breast cancer?
Okay, just like most women, I have a period every month. And when that happens, my breasts ache. It's just a thing. It happens. You get used to it. You, mine usually starts aching right before, and it'll ache for a few days afterwards, and then it goes away. Well, this time it stayed. It hurt longer than normal, and then it changed from the normal ache to like a burning pain in my left breast. And I was like, after several days, I was like, okay, this is different. So I did a manual breast exam, which takes like 30 seconds for a single breast. And I felt there was something hard and big, and at the time it was big, where there had never been anything there before that I had noticed. And I was like, that is weird and that's suspicious. So I went to mom, said, "Mom, do you feel anything here?" She closed her eyes and then felt, she goes, you need to call your OBGYN. So I did. That was January 18th. And then the 20th, I saw my OBGYN. She felt it and she ordered imaging. The earliest that I could get imaging was February 8th. Now, by this point, I had already told my boss at my job that I was quitting and my last day would be January 27th because I was going to go to flight school. So that was already in the works. And so I kind of I didn't tell anybody about what was going on except my family because I didn't want to jump to conclusions because it could just be fibrocystic or something harmless. And all these things you tell yourself when you're kind of pretty sure that's not what it is, but you don't want to jump to that first. Then February 8th, they did the imaging. It was a mammogram and an ultrasound. And I hate mammograms. They hurt. And this one hurt a lot more than the normal one. And the poor nurse was apologizing, or I think she's a technician, was apologizing the whole time. And then they did the ultrasound, and the nurse doing the ultrasound was like, "Wow, I see a lot of masses here." I was like, "Okay, well, I have some suspicions now. Okay, well, we're gonna go look at these, and then we'll be right back." The doctor came in and said, "Okay, so we found multiple masses, no numbers, just multiple masses, and we want to do a biopsy. Would you be free next Monday?" And I said, "Actually, no. Next Monday, at the exact same time that you suggested, I have my annual breast MRI, which most women, you have an annual mammogram after a certain age. And then if you have certain factors like a genetic disposition, like I do, then you can also have a breast MRI. So it's like every 6 months, you have a mammogram and then an MRI, a mammogram and an MRI. And it just so happened that my MRI had been scheduled for next Monday. Now it had been rescheduled like 3 times because you have to be a certain part of the period because of, I guess, the tissue in your breast changes depending on what's going on in your period, and they need to see it at a certain time. So I had to reschedule it 3 different times because it just never fell right. And I was like, "So that's happening. Do I need to reschedule?" He goes, "No, go ahead and do that. Can you come to this other hospital that's in network to get your biopsy?" I was like, "Yes, I can." He goes, "Okay, well, we can do it tomorrow." So February 9th, I had the biopsy. And they said, well, you should have the results next week. Then that Monday, the February 13th, I had the breast MRI. And then the 14th, Valentine's Day, I went and they said, okay, yeah, you have invasive ductal carcinoma in your breast. I was like, well, I kind of suspected. And I had a little bit of a preview because when I went to the MRI, I glanced at the nurse's notes and it said, the 3 biopsies that they did. There was a lymph node, which was benign, yay. And then 2 different masses, and it said malignant. I was like, well, that tells me right there. So I had gone back to home after the MRI, and I told mom. And she immediately started looking for breast surgeons in the area and contacted one. And they said the earliest we can get you in is like next week, if that's what the confirmation is. And Tuesday morning, Valentine's Day morning, I was stalking the patient portal and I saw the notes from the biopsy that made it very clear I do have cancer. And so she made the appointment and said, but if there's any cancellations, please let us know. And 45 minutes after she made that call, the surgeon called back and said, hey, we have an opening for this Thursday. And we took that one. So that would be Thursday afternoon. So February 14th, I got the official diagnosis. And then they also scheduled me to meet their surgeon Thursday morning. And they said, this is, you don't have to go with the surgeon. This is just kind of to give you an opportunity to talk to one, and then you can find second, third opinions as you wish. So then Thursday, the 16th, we saw their breast surgeon in the morning. And then the one my mom found in the afternoon, we ended up going with the one my mom found because she spent 20 minutes looking at all of the results from all of my tests on her own, and then came in and explained the whole thing to me and my parents in a way that was not, it used techno jargon, but in a way that made sense. She didn't feel like she was trying to, how some people are so smart, they'll use words that you don't understand because they understand them, not to be rude, but just, she didn't do that. She would explain everything to you in a way that made sense without feeling like he was talking down to you. And then she said, also, the MRI found a mass on your right breast and I want to do a biopsy. I was like, okay, when would you like to schedule it? She goes, no, you don't understand. You're not leaving here until I get it. We're doing it right after this. I was like, oh, okay. Also, there's some suspicious lymph nodes that I want to do a biopsy on those too, because all of the radiology says that they should be malignant, but they're not. The biopsy said it wasn't. So I think that's weird. I want to test another one. So she did the biopsy of the right breast and then another lymph node. The lymph node also came back as benign. And the one on the right, the mass on my right breast ended up being fibrocystic. So she's like, okay, cool. We don't have to worry about the one on the right breast. And we don't have to worry about the lymph nodes. I'm going to keep an eye on them. But since they look weird, but they are benign, I'm thinking that they're just contorting and acting weird because of the proximity to the cancer. So let's go from there. Then contacted my oncologist, and the first time I was able to talk to her, I was on the phone with her. And she wanted to do a whole bunch of scans. She wanted to do a PET scan to see if the cancer had spread anywhere. But the insurance denied that. Now, at the time, my insurance was COBRA. So it was an extension from work. So basically, when I quit my job, the insurance cut off. But then I had to pay to get the COBRA extension. So I had to wait for all that paperwork to come in. And then when the paperwork came in, the first claim they got was for a PET scan. So it was essentially a PET scan out of nowhere. And they were like, no. But then all the other claims started coming in. They're like, oh, so we missed a thing. But in the meantime, to make up for the fact I couldn't have a PET scan, I had a bone scan. I had it was a brain MRI and an echocardiogram and then a CT scan. And it was a lot. It was a lot of IVs. It was a lot of contrast. It was kind of a little bit stressful.
How quickly did treatment begin? What were your treatment options, and how did your body respond to the aggressive therapies you had to undergo?
It happened very, very fast. And I tribute God for that. there was a lot of things in there that I look at it and just go, there's no way that God wasn't involved in that. I found the tumor the first time on January 18th. I got the diagnosis on February 14th, and then I started chemotherapy March the 2nd. And I met my oncologist on February 27th, that last Monday of February. And she said, okay, so your cancer is grade 3. It's very aggressive. So we're going to start chemotherapy right now. In fact, I've already scheduled you for this Thursday. And I was like, oh, okay. What does that involve? And she goes, well, you don't have a port yet. So we're going to have that put in. It's like, okay, so that's going to happen within a couple days. Goes, oh, no, that's actually going to happen the week after you get your first chemotherapy. So this is going to have to go in as like an IV. I was like, oh, that's nice. Not intimidating at all. Just, I'm really sorry, but we want to get on this real fast. So Thursday I go in, and the nurses are very, very nice. And honestly, considering what they do, I don't know how they manage to be so happy all the time. Sometimes I just like, you guys are made of some stronger stuff. But I explained, I don't have a port. It's going to get surgically put in next week. I don't know how are you going to do the chemotherapy? And the nurse said, well, we're going to put it in an IV and it'll be in your arm. I was like, okay, so like in my elbow, like the joint, or my hand? Because, oh no, it has to be in like your forearm, like between your wrist and your elbow. And I was like, oh, because yeah, we can't risk having anything happen because it's a big needle, and the chemotherapy will burn your vein. I was like, it'll do what? Because yeah, it's gonna bruise your vein. It'll look like a shadow for a while. I was like, oh, that's nice. And she was not wrong about that. It didn't, the IV hurt, but it was more pressure because they had to slow down the distribution speed, just because it would have been fine for a port, but it wasn't okay for direct into the vein. And I had to hold like a warm pack against my arm and press on it to keep from hurting. And I saw that nurse again later. She goes, oh yeah, I remember you. You sat like this whole time. I was like, yep. Then I got the port surgically put in, and it was the day after I had my CT scan, and they were both in the afternoons, and I had to fast for both of them, and I couldn't even drink water. So I ended up very dehydrated, and I came back from the port surgery. I got sick. And then when I went into chemotherapy that Thursday, because I do it weekly, they gave me a whole big bag of extra fluids. And they said, here's lidocaine. Put this lidocaine cream on your port about an hour before you arrive so that it will be nice and numb when we stab it. And because it still had the surgical tape from the port surgery to put it in, I wasn't able to put the lidocaine on. And so they're like, I'm really sorry. Count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And they put it in. It was like it's just an IV, but they put it into your chest, right into the port. And you're just like, oh, yeah, I cried. And then, but I made sure to do my best to remember to put the lidocaine on every single time after that. Still missed one time. I don't know how I did it. I set it out and I somehow walked right past it. And, but at that point, I just kind of accepted my fate. I was like, well, I forgot it. All right. It'll hurt going in, it'll hurt coming out, but I'll be okay. And it feels like you're being stabbed. But once it's in, it's fine. But it's not pleasant going in and coming out. I'm like, yeah, I can see why the lidocaine is important. But the nurses make it tolerable because they'll constantly check on you. They're very understanding. They listen when you say, look, I'm uncomfortable. It's like, okay, well, let's figure out, maybe we can slow the distribution down. Do you need a stack? Is there anything we can get you to drink? You can order food delivery into the infusion room. A lot of people will do that, especially if you're there during a mealtime and you're not feeling nauseous. And it's nice knowing that there are people there who care. But the place where I go, the infusion room still doesn't allow any guests. So it's just the patients, the nurses and doctors who are allowed in there. So I don't get to talk to anybody unless I'm via the internet, like Discord, or on the phone if I'm talking to mom and dad. And so no one else can come back there. So it's a little bit lonely, and it's always a little bit intimidating, especially knowing that, oh, the steroids are going to keep me up all night tonight. And then you're going to get some neuropathy tingles. You're like, this is not going to be fun.
Going through all of this alone would be truly unfathomable. Who was with you during all of that? You mentioned God playing an important role, the cancer community, and TikTok. Where and how did you find the support and encouragement you needed?
I saw God from the beginning of it because I would not have done a breast exam to find it had the pain not changed. Like if the pain had just in the breast had just lingered, I would have not really thought much of it. But it changed to a very burning pain that made me cry, which is why I did the breast exam to begin with and found it. But it has never hurt that way since. So it was kind of like God going, okay, well, if subtlety isn't going to work, then let me just like smack you until you notice. And then it was him directing mom to find a surgeon, and then the OBGYN immediately ordering the imaging, and then the people at the hospital jumping on it, seeing things in the imaging, immediately wanting to do a biopsy, and then taking everything that they possibly could and doing it very, very quickly. And then the oncologist going, yes, we're not gonna stage it, but I do know the grade. It's very aggressive, so we're going to jump on it right now. And I know you don't have a port, but we're still going to start chemotherapy now because I don't want to take that chance. And that was it was literally a month, and February is a short month, so it was a very quick progression of things. So I know that was, especially with the cancellation with the surgeon, being able to see her Thursday after the diagnosis instead of a week later, and the way everything kind of fell in place, because you cannot legally fly or pilot an aircraft when you know you have cancer and or are going through cancer treatments. Now that I have done it, I completely understand why I would not want to pilot an aircraft right now. But that meant I had to stop the loan going through to the flight school. And thankfully it hadn't, but I had already paid the deposit, so I got all my textbooks. So now I have nothing to do except read. So I can actually read my textbooks without having to stress about a test or something. I can actually read them and study for this. So when I try it again, I'll have a better step up. So God did that. It ended up stopping the loan on time, making the diagnosis, all of that go very quickly. And then when I met the oncologist on Monday, and then she said, okay, we're going to be starting the chemotherapy on March 2nd, but I'm going to put in for these medications for you to pick up and from your pharmacy so that you have them for the side effects that will happen from chemotherapy. Now I'm taking chemotherapy weekly instead of once every 21 days. So the dose is lower and the side effects should be more minor. The end result is the same, but that's still a weekly visit that I have to make. And she said, okay, it can cause nausea, it can cause hair loss, it can cause neuropathy, a whole bunch of different things. And these medications that I've ordered from your pharmacy are to help mitigate those, specifically the nausea. And because I don't handle nausea, I feel nauseous. I do not want to do anything. So that very next day, I went to go pick them up from the pharmacy, and I was kind of experiencing. Because I had kind of suspected ahead of time. I was at I'm okay. I've got this. I knew it was going to hit eventually, but it hadn't hit yet. So I was like, okay, well, as long as it hasn't hit yet, I'm going to get as much done as I can. So when it does hit, I can take the time to cry and just experience. But I had been talking to mom before I left the house, and she had left her phone outside. And when I went in to go get the medication from the pharmacy, there was a lady behind me, an older lady, who, when I went up to the pharmacy, I was the only one in line. So a line formed behind me, and she had been very huffy and puffy. And you know that the passive aggressive, oh my gosh. And then the looking around to say, like, is no one else going to come to the desk and help us out? Why is this taking so long? But without saying the words, it was all body language. And normally I'm very good at, I'll see people do that, and I just can't help but think in my head, wow, you were such a drama queen, and then move on. It's water off a duck's back. It doesn't bother me. It's kind of more amusing than anything else. But for some reason, it hit me really hard, that reaction. The fact that I felt I was using GoodRx to get some discounts on those medications, because it would have been $52. But even then, I could only knock it down for like 40 something bucks, which is still expensive, but not as expensive as it would have been. But it takes a bit because you have to type everything in and manually, and then search it, and then find the specific pharmacy, and then the pharmacist has to put all that information in by hand. It takes a while. And I suddenly felt very inadequate, very helpless, very scared. Like I had never done this before. And I started stuttering, and I started kind of shaking. And by the time I got the medication, I was like, okay, just make it to the car. Just make it to the car. You can cry in the car. You can make it to the car. You can cry in the car. I made it to the car. I sat down and I started crying. I was like, okay, I'm going to call mom. But because she had left her phone outside, she didn't answer. Now, at the time, I didn't know this, but mom was using the house phone to call her phone so she could find her phone. And I was calling her phone so I could talk to her. So it was both at the same time. No one ended up getting each other. I needed to talk to someone. And I had a TikTok. And normally I'm a lurker. I just like liking videos and saving them and sending them to my friends. That's what I do. And my following was tiny. I mean, I'll be really courteous and say I had 200 followers. And I was like, I need to talk to someone. Well, there are not many people on my TikTok, but I can make a video and just kind of vent for a minute. And then that'll be that. So that's what I did. I made I think it was a 3-minute video of just explaining the situation, and then say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hold the other lady up. I still don't. I didn't mean to, even though I know now that, patience is a thing, but I was very upset and I was scared, and I was like, look, I'm scared. I just got this diagnosis, and it ended up, it began hitting me at that point. That was when it decided to hit me emotionally, that, oh, this is happening. It's not just oh, okay. It's oh, okay. And when the video was done, I cried, and then I just posted it. I didn't add any tags. I didn't add any text or info, anything. I just posted it. That was that. And most of my videos become, they just get buried, which is fine. I never really wanted to be famous. And sure enough, 5 hours later, there was 36 views, like 16 likes, and like 5 comments. That's about it, that was actually pretty good for me, for my videos, And I was like, but the comments were nice. I was like, thank you. That's kind of all I really needed, is just someone to listen. And then I met mom. Mom actually called me, and we both met at the Panera, and I just told her the whole story and broke down. We talked for a good while. And then I woke up the next day and just opened TikTok just to watch things. And I had notifications, 99 plus. So I was like, what? Well, I've never seen that before. And I opened it up, and my video had gone viral overnight. And I had to sit there and process for a second. And I remember panicking. I actually had to call one of my friends to go, we need to meet because I have questions. I don't know what to do. And she said, okay, well, how do you feel about it? It's like, I mean, I never wanted to be famous. That was never the point. I would not have posted that had I thought it would go anywhere, because, that's not, I didn't come on here to be famous. I just made the video because I knew not many people would see it, and I just needed to be heard for just a little bit. She goes, okay, well, you have your platform now. What are you going to do with it? So I prayed, and then I went through read as many of the comments as I could. There's no way I could read them all. There were too many. And then all of the stitches and the duets. And it was a surprisingly supportive community. Like, surprisingly, I had always kind of suspected that it was a supportive community, but it's also kind of a depressive thing because it's cancer, But so many people were cancer survivors or caregivers or people who are fighting right now. And they were all being supportive and understanding and giving suggestions on how to handle this. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to turn this down. Sure, I'll explain what I'm doing and what's going on. And y'all who have been there before, please give me some sort of advice or suggestions, anything to help mitigate what's going to happen. And I was blown away by the warmth of the community. The people are, and these are from people from all over the world, all walks of life, people who have, maybe they didn't have cancer themselves. Maybe they were just a caregiver, or maybe just someone they knew had cancer, a friend, or people who did have cancer, people who are in remission, people who are terminal, and they're all warm and friendly and welcoming and understanding. And I would say, hey, I'm going through this. Does anybody have any suggestions? And they would go, sure, be aware of this. This can cause this. This can cause this. Or like the infusion room is going to be cold. The chemotherapy is going to be cold. Get warm, fuzzy socks. Get those head caps because you're gonna need it. And then when my hair started falling out, it also started hurting real bad, almost like my head was burning. And I said, well, "What do you do? Like, what? I didn't. No one told me it was supposed to burn. It was just supposed to fall out." And they were like, "Oh yeah, shave your head. If you shave your head, it'll go away." And I was like, "Oh well, I mean, it's gonna fall out anyway, so why not?" So I did, and boom, the pain went away. And I was like, "Well, why did that happen? Why did it hurt?" Because well, it inflames the hair follicles, and that's what makes it hurt. I was like, "Well, geez, no one tells me about that." Or it's like, "Oh yeah, there's also the fingernails thing." I'm like, "What? What is this?" "Oh yeah, your fingernails can fall off." I didn't know that. No one told me that. No one told me your fingernails can fall off from chemotherapy. Because, oh yeah, it attacks all the fast growing cells, which are your hair and fingernails and mouth. And I was like, oh geez, these are not things that I ever knew. But now I know, and now I know I can mitigate them by like keeping my hands cold when I go to chemotherapy. Or like the first few times I went, I didn't suck on anything cold. So I got, my mouth burned. And they said, oh, yeah, suck on ice cubes or something cold or popsicles. And I haven't had mouth issues since I started doing that. I I drink tea from a big, my favorite mug is one my fiance gave me. It's a big black mug that has the Critical Role Model logo on one side and the Mighty Nine logo on the other. And I didn't think much of it. And I made a video where I was drinking from it, and someone saw it and recognized it. People started asking, hey, do you have a P.O. box? And I was like, no. And I didn't want to get one because I didn't really want to be, I was afraid of being, someone who would potentially, I didn't want to take advantage of people. And people started, hey, can we send you money? I was like, no, I don't need money. I'm financially stable. By this point, insurance had covered everything because I basically met my deductible and my out of pocket just that 1 month between the OBGYN and the diagnosis. I had met my deductible. That's how expensive all of that was. I had to pay about something like $3,500, $3,500. That was my deductible. And once I met that, insurance now covers everything as long as I stay in network. But I was like, I'm financially stable. Please don't send me money. But they started saying, look, we want to send you things. It's like, I'll take letters, sure. So I opened up a P.O. box at a post office near the hospital. And I was like, okay, well, give me a week. I'll leave it for a week. And I came back a week later and they said, oh, yeah, we have a 40-pound bin in the back for you. I was like, you have a what? There was about 30 boxes in there. And I kind of stood there looking at it like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so I was expecting letters, maybe a small little package of, like ginger juice, something like that. No, boxes. And none of them were like miscellaneous stuff. They were all things sent by caregivers or survivors or people who are currently fighting or people who were friends of people who had cancer. It's like, this is what I or such and such used during cancer. Blankets, ginger juice, lemon flavored candies to suck on because they help with nausea. Blankets for the warmth for when you're in the infusion room, which is cold, while you're getting the cold chemotherapy, and coloring books to pass your time, or puzzle books because chemotherapy can cause memory issues. They call it chemo fog or brain fog. You'll forget things, and it's subtle sometimes. And there's like, it's not you. You will think that maybe it's a you thing. It's not. It's a chemotherapy thing. I looked at my next door neighbor that I've known for years, and I could not remember his name. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know your name. I can't think of your name. It took me 30 seconds for me to grab his name from my mind. And I will forget words like milk or the book. I will forget the word for the book, and I'll have to sit there and go, the thing, that, because I forget the words. And these puzzles help you try and mitigate that, or you keep your brain as sharp as you can before the chemotherapy goes away. And the people who saw the Critical Role mug that I didn't think much of, a couple people sent me boxes of Critical Role stuff. So now I have like a little Kiri plushie. I have my favorite character is Essek, and I got an Essek pen and one of the little thing that goes on the key to keep it secure. So that's now my PO box key. Then one of them sent me a blankie, a Critical Role blanket. And then I've also gotten for radiation cream to rub on your skin because you're going to get burns from the radiation, or hand cream from the chemotherapy as it dries out your skin, or anything and everything they were sending me was stuff that I could actually use and have used. And I haven't had to buy a chemotherapy cap since I lost my hair, because they just sent them to me. And I have never come across a community who was so open and welcoming and wanted to help someone they did not even know. And I've been involved in a lot of communities before, but this was the first one that not only did they send me things unasked for, but they sent me things that mattered, things that I have been able to use, things that I would never have thought to buy because I didn't know it was a thing. And they said, "Oh yeah, here's caps for you to wear." I didn't know they had these. I didn't know these were a thing. I probably would have figured it out after a while, but it was like, "Oh no, here you go." Or I look at these people and go, "You guys are so amazing." And the hope for humanity thing, the mass media will, it's always doom, gloom, blood, and sadness. And then you look at this community of people who don't know me from Adam, and they looked and said, I can do that. I can help this person because I've been there, or I've seen someone who's been there, and I know what to help you with. And they have just blown my mind with that. And every time I go on TikTok and give them an update, it's like, this is what's happening. I had this scan. This is what it is, or this is the chemotherapy. Because I didn't know what goes on with chemotherapy. Every time I would see something with cancer in Hollywood, it was, we want to get rid of this character. So you give them cancer, and now they're going to die. Like, that's how it is in Hollywood. No explanation of what chemotherapy is, what you go through. They just suddenly get diagnosed with cancer. The next thing you know, they've lost their hair and then they're dead. That's it. There's a whole lot more to it. And there's a whole lot more hope to it too, especially with the advances in science, which is another thing. People they'll suggest many different solutions. I may not always agree with them, but it always comes from, oh, I want to help place in their heart. And that's what matters. Each and every one of them cares. They cared enough to give me a suggestion or to say, hey, try this. And maybe it doesn't work. Maybe that solution just doesn't work for me. Like I've had with the shots that I got to boost my white blood cell count, it causes bone pain, which can be excruciating from some people. I have a high pain tolerance, but still a couple days ago, it was knocking me off my feet. And some of them were suggesting things that I'm not sure I can have, like CBD or THC, because I'm not sure if I need to check the legality in the state, but also I need to talk to my oncologist before I start, taking stuff. But I'm going to talk to my oncologist about it, see if that works. But I couldn't try it immediately because I can't just get my hands on it, But some people were like, try Epsom salts baths, and it worked. And now it didn't work perfectly, but someone suggested a heating pad, and that is what kicked it. So I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of Epsom salt baths. I mean, I kind of heard of them, but I've never really had one before. So I went and some people had sent me stuff. So I was like, sure, I'll try it. Worst thing that happens is nothing happens. And that helped. And it's not that the doctors and nurses don't tell you things. It's that if you don't know to ask, they don't know to help. Does that make sense? They are so helpful, but only if they know that you need help. They'll suggest things. And then the people on TikTok will go, oh, yeah, no, they didn't think to tell you that. Well, here you go. Try this. And I swear that the reason why I have had such good luck with, that sounds really twisted, with all good luck with the minor side effects and whatnot, is because God gave me this community of people who are willing to step up and help me with things I never would have thought to look for, because I didn't even know that it existed. And I'm eternally grateful for that.
Where are you now in your breast cancer journey? And how do you hope for your own story to continue?
Like I said, I found the tumor on January 18th, and it was pretty big. I don't remember the exact. I think the total volume, if I remember from reading the one of the biopsy radiology reports, was like 10 centimeters, as in like the total volume of it. It has. I could feel it just by putting just two fingers gently on the left side of my left breast. You could just feel it. It's like rock hard. Now I have a hard time finding it. And even the oncologist and the PA have a hard time finding it. And they are thrilled, because that means that the chemotherapy is working. It's working very well. Now, I currently have I can't remember the whole name, but it's Taxol and carboplatin regimen. I have 2 more weeks of that. So 2 more sessions of that. And then I'll have 12 weeks of, the colloquial term is the red devil. I can't remember the chemical name, but that's considered one of the strongest, if not the strongest, chemotherapy cocktail. It's called that because it can turn your pee pink, and if you're not ready for it, it looks like you have blood in your urine, but it's not. It's just the chemotherapy chemical doing that. But it makes you very nauseous. That's what that one is infamous for. Not looking forward to that one. But then when that one's done, I'll have some time to recover, and then have a double mastectomy. So remove both breasts. They'll put in expanders to keep the skin stretched, and then radiation. I think it's tentative still. They're going to play it by ear, but I think it's about 5 weeks of radiation. And that would be like an hour or so a day, every business day. And then reconstruction, which would be the breast surgeon that I've been in contact with would be the one to do the double mastectomy. It would be a plastic surgeon that I haven't found yet who would do the reconstruction. And there's so many different ways of doing it that I haven't even, since that's so far ahead, I haven't really thought about how I'm going to go about that. But that is currently where I am standing. So I'm not going to lie, I'm really having anxiety about the red devil, but I have all the medications to deal with it. I don't want to. But I have had my white blood cell count continues to drop. That's just a side effect of chemotherapy. There's really nothing you can do about that, except they give you white blood cell count booster shots. I think I'm taking Zarzio. There's also a Neulasta, but I've been taking Zarzio, and you have to have the shot 24 hours before or 24 hours after chemotherapy. I've been getting 2 a week, 2 last week, and then I went for the future as is, I'll be getting 2 of those shots a week. So that's going to be some fun bone pain for a while. But considering the alternative of having no white blood cells, which would be horrible, or too low, which means I would have to delay chemotherapy. And I've already had to have that happen once. And since the oncologist does not want to keep doing that, since the chemotherapy has been working, like you could palpate, you can actually feel the tumor going away. There's that tactile proof that it's working. She does not want to do that again. So thus 2 shots. So that's currently where I am standing. So yes, it's nervous and nerve wracking, but I have proof that it's working, which, is comforting in its own way.
Of course, we wish you all the best, Emily, and hope that it goes in a direction where very soon maybe we can do a follow-up of you being cancer-free. Now, we spoke about your love for books earlier. if you ever decided to turn your own life into a book, what would you name it and what would the cover art be like?
All the videos that I made on TikTok regarding the cancer, I put in a playlist called Unexpected Journey. And it's kind of a play on, I love Lord of the Rings. And when all of the dwarves just showed up and party crashed Bilbo Baggins' home, it was like an unexpected party. And I was like, well, it's not a party, but it's certainly a journey. So an unexpected journey. And I think I would probably name the book Unexpected Journey. And then the cover would probably be a chemo cap, one of the colorful ones like I'm wearing now. And then laying on top of a book with a mug, like my Critical Role mug full of tea. And then a Bible probably over in the just in view. And that would probably be it. That honestly would probably, because that's just all the different things that every single one has its own meaning of where it came from and what part of the journey that it's played a role in so far.
Now, Emily, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and perhaps become a part of your TikTok community, how can they find you?
Well, my TikTok username is Light of Shadows. And if you have a TikTok, you basically just follow me, or you don't have to follow me, but you'll start, if you've looked for me, you might start seeing some of my videos appearing in your For You page as part of the algorithm. But if you follow me, then you will get my videos, either those that are tailored to you or just appearing in your For You page because you follow me. And that's where I post all of the things that I have going through, or if I have a funny story to tell you, like, when I decided not to take a shower because I didn't want to deal with wet hair because I forgot that I didn't have hair, that sort of thing, which has happened. That's mostly, I think, TikTok is still free. You can still get it in the US because they haven't decided to block it yet. But yeah, that's where I am currently.
Emily, thank you so much for this hour, for our conversation, and for making so many women out there feel less alone in their own health journey. Before we close, I would like to know what you most appreciate about yourself.
I am a very stubborn person, and that has helped me. Now, it's also caused problems, but it has definitely helped me because I will see the situation that I am in, and then my reaction is, okay, well, let's pray about it, and then let's take it step by step. And I refuse to let myself get bogged down by depression or there's no hope for humanity. The world is a horrible place. And I'll just that stubbornness will come out and I'll dig my heels in and go, no, it's not, because we have Lord of the Rings. Can't be a horrible world if there's Lord of the Rings. Or no, it can't be a horrible world because it's sunny outside. There's a bird singing. I'll fight you. And that helps me. It's helped me in just about any respect, especially during this cancer journey. And so I guess the stubbornness and the refusal to accept that, yeah, it's a bad situation, but there's hope. And I refuse to believe there is no hope. So I guess that would be what I appreciate the most, and the fact that God's helped me see that. Because I think had this happened even 5 years before, I would not be handling it as well as I have. So I know that God has helped me tailor my stubbornness. So instead of refusing to just, I guess, I can see that there is hope and refusing to believe that there is no hope. So I guess that would be what I would say I appreciate the most.
Friends and ThoughtVolutionists, I hope some of that stubbornness, that passion, that everlasting fire Emily shared with us today will rub off on all of us. The world really isn't all gloom and doom, and if we squint our eyes and see that little ray of sunshine blocking out everything else around it, we may come to realize how much there really is to appreciate. Make sure you follow Emily's Unexpected Journey on TikTok. Her profile name is Light of Shadows. Again, that is Light of Shadows. And, well, friends, there are only a few more episodes left in this first season of ThoughtVolution. However, I want to hear your story. And I'm currently looking for courageous people just like Emily who are willing to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly life often entails for Season 2. We still have a few more stories before we take a little break, and Season 2 will air either later this year or early 2024. More details will follow soon, so make sure you subscribe to the newsletter on our website. If you feel inspired and would like to take that very first step, please go to thoughtvolutionpodcast.com. You will find our intake form. Fill it out and I will get back with you as soon as I can. Your story matters and it deserves an audience. It deserves to be heard. You deserve to be heard. If you would like to support this podcast, this passion project of mine that I love so very, very, very much, you can do so in a number of ways. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on all major podcast apps such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, etc. You can also subscribe to our social media. There is YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, TikTok. Just type in ThoughtVolution. I even post the occasional little German lesson on TikTok. It's interesting and fun and a cool way for us to stay connected in our little ThoughtVolution community. Lastly, you can of course go to thoughtvolutionpodcast.com and visit our merch store and pick out a really awesome sweater or t-shirt or hat. It allows you to wear a piece of ThoughtVolution in your everyday life, and it may even provoke or spark some conversations. And that is what it's all about, really. We need to listen more to each other. We need community. I love Emily's story so much because it shows how valid, important, and powerful the longing for belonging truly is. When we find our tribe of people, even the most difficult life situations become more bearable. When community grows, loneliness disappears, and genuine inspiration takes place. So today, my request for you is as follows. Find your tribe. Look in unlikely places. Seek out unlikely friendships and foster true connections with people who may become friends, teachers, mentors, soulmates, especially if you think that there cannot possibly be somebody out there for you to build your own community with. According to the Worldometer, as of the day of this recording, there are 8,038,432,848 people on this planet. Your tribe is out there. I'm 100% certain of it. So, as always, see you next week, and please be kind to each other. All 8 billion and some change of you. I love you lotsies.